ما أقدر أتزوج الشخص اللي أبيه، ما أقدر أتوظف إلا موافقة ولي أمري.
Aside from being one of the wealthiest countries and the center of Islam, Saudi Arabia is one country that leaves us in utter shock whenever a discovery within its confines is made. Today, we'll explore some of the extreme practices you never knew existed and unveil truths about this intriguing nation. Are you ready for an eye-opening journey? Let's get to it. Number 15. Left-handedness is a taboo. What if we told you that using your left hand is evil? Are you an ambidexter or left-handed? And do you think it's normal? Wait until your outstretched left hand is greeted with weird expressions, called disrespectful, given rude stares, or even refused contact in Saudi Arabia. Yes, you heard that right. In Saudi Arabia, there's a cultural belief that the right hand is clean and should be reserved for pure activities like eating, greeting others, and giving or receiving gifts. Meanwhile, the left hand is considered unclean and should be strictly used for impure things. Now, before you start questioning the logic, here's the drill. Islam places great importance on cleanliness and purity because of the Prophet Muhammad's preference for it. Even in schools, left-handed children are often forced to use their right hand. So if you ever find yourself on the receiving end of a stern stare from a cashier at the cash point or a disapproving look from a waiter at a restaurant, you might have to confirm if you've unknowingly committed the grave sin of using your left hand. Number 14. The morality police. Ever wondered how a country as strict as Saudi Arabia, with a vast landscape and dense population, manages to ensure compliance with its overwhelming laws? Before we continue, buckle up because you're about to get enraged. Just as every society has a task force that enforces laws, Saudi Arabia created a body called the Moral Police. These people are like ghosts that seamlessly blend into society and will only appear if a law is broken. But here's where things take an awkward twist. Instead of upholding peace and order, they are the sole instigators of violence and chaos. You know what they say about power. When given to the wrong person, it becomes a weapon. Imagine driving through the streets of Saudi Arabia when suddenly you find yourself caught in traffic during prayer hour. Just as you're trying to make your way to the mosque or a safe place to pray, an unruly man from nowhere takes you in a rush while hitting you severely with heavy sticks unprovoked. Brace yourself for the worst part. These fanatics didn't spare women. In fact, it was women who suffered their raging scorn the most. We're talking about cases where women were beaten to stupor, or even death just because they were not wearing hijabs. That's how brutal, disgusting, and low these people could go, driven by their twisted ideology and misguided sense of righteousness. Thankfully, Arabians had a breath of fresh air when power was taken from them, and they were banned from passing judgment on offenders. Number 13. No PDA. This next one is amusing, perhaps the weirdest. We humans desire to love, be loved, and be shown affection by those we love. It's a natural desire we crave even in public. But guess what Saudi Arabia says? We are not interested in that. You want to show affection? Use the room. Now, as funny as this may sound, this is the harsh reality in Saudi Arabia. In simple terms, PDA is completely banned in Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about explicit sexual acts. No, we mean the least thing like cuddling your partner, stealing a romantic kiss, smooching them, or any other public display of affection you could think of. I bet you didn't see this coming, but it is what it is. To emphasize their seriousness, they clearly stated, if you dare to violate this law, you risk paying a huge fine, facing imprisonment, or even deportation. So all you lovebirds who enjoy showing affection in public places might want to wait until you get to your room, as these people are in for business. The truth is, you don't have a choice. You either abide or face the consequences head-on. There are no two ways about it. If you think it is strange, wait till you hear what's coming up next. Number 12. Ban on women driving. Before we continue, let's deliberate on this. Why are women at the receiving end in Saudi Arabia? Why is so much restriction placed on them? While we ponder this, let's delve into another questionable aspect of Saudi Arabia. If you're a lady with a thing for automobiles, especially cars, and you were in Saudi Arabia before 2018, you definitely would have had to reconsider. What if we told you that women were prohibited from owning or even driving cars or airplanes? It was justified under the flawed notion that they could be exposed to dangers and temptations outside the home, which we know is only a ploy with an ulterior motive. Of course, some women saw this as unfair and opposed it, but when they did, they were either imprisoned or even lost their jobs. Some groups of women were so riled up that they decided enough was enough, protested, and stood their ground until the ban was lifted in 2018. Of course, some men were unhappy about it, but who cared? Not the silenced women. Do you think that's all? Hold on for the best part. Shortly after that, we're talking less than 3 months, over 40,000 women had enrolled in driving classes and were issued licenses. We're glad their resilience paid off, but did that end gender segregation? We'll find out in a few seconds. Number 11. Zero gay tolerance. If you're a liberal person, this next one will throw you off balance, so sit tight. Have you ever heard the saying, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do," and never taken it seriously? After what you're about to hear, you'll understand why blending in with the society you find yourself in can be crucial. If you happen to identify as gay, here's a little piece of advice. Keep it to yourself when you're in Saudi Arabia, as announcing your sexual orientation can land you in some hot water, imprisonment, execution, or even deportation. Suppose you cherish your newfound identity and want to be recognized in a manner that differs from your original birth identity. In that case, Saudi Arabia is not the place for you. Trust me, you'd be better off avoiding it like the plague. This is no jokey. It is as serious as it sounds. You might be thinking, wait a minute, I heard they started welcoming gay tourists recently. You're right, but it's best to lie low for now and carefully observe how things unfold before you go parading your LGBTQ flag or identity in the streets of Saudi Arabia. While there are efforts to loosen up the social climate, remember that there are still extremists who adhere strictly to Sharia law. And let's face it, the government can only do so much to protect you or closely monitor the activities of its approximately 37.2 million citizens to ensure your safety. That brings us to the next shocker. Number 10. No birth control. Suppose you're unmarried and you had unprotected sex in Saudi Arabia when you were not on family planning. In that case, you're in for a huge surprise. Do you know why? Birth control is not a thing in Saudi Arabia. Women are encouraged to have as many children as they can. But for the enlightened 1/3 of married women in Saudi Arabia who do believe in family planning, contraceptives like pills, condoms, and intrauterine devices, IUDs, are readily available to them. This narrative, however, does not apply to unmarried folks, because sex outside marriage is largely frowned upon. So, those who indulge in it must be extra careful because, unlike married folks, no pharmacy can sell emergency morning-after pills. Thus, these women must be prepared to face the music by keeping the pregnancy and facing societal backlash, since abortion is a no-no, as it is a taboo that is highly punishable. But what do you think about this law? Is it appropriate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Number 9. Strict restrictions on women now. To the part we've been waiting for. It seems we've stumbled upon a rather serious situation here, as it appears that in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the concept of freedom extends only to the male population. Are these folks trying to protect the women, or are they taking it too far? How can it be that a full-grown woman is given so much restriction that the only place she's free is in her house? No, you don't understand the severity of this. So let's delve a little deeper for more context. Did you know that women in Saudi Arabia were not allowed to travel freely or seek medical attention without having a man present by their side? Even in the job market, women couldn't simply fill certain positions. Do you think that's all? In public places like buses and Starbucks, these women could not sit in the same seating area as the men or even enjoy a leisurely swim. Though some of these laws have been relaxed, which is an improvement in the right direction, the real shocker is that some rigid laws are still upheld, like the law of women being banned from visiting the cemetery unless they are dead. With all these restrictions, we can't help but wonder how these women breathe, because it seems they are trapped in a suffocating web of limitations. Number 8. Water, a national treasure. Prepare to have your mind blown by the astonishing discovery that left us just as flabbergasted as you are. Do you know that even though oil is one place Saudi Arabia draws its wealth from, it is not the most treasured? Here's the scoop. With 95% of the country covered in the desert and the absence of rivers, Saudi Arabia heavily relies on groundwater as its primary source of clean water, which, unfortunately, is gradually diminishing. This precious resource is used for everything from human consumption to agriculture, and its depletion poses a significant challenge. The government has gone the extra mile to desalinate the remaining 2% of ocean water to combat this issue. Just take a moment to imagine yourself in a place where every drop of water is measured and valued due to its scarcity. It's a stark contrast to living in a society where water flows freely, and we often take it for granted without considering where the next sip will come from or how much we'll have to pay for it. These are blessings we often overlook. Because of the energy and resources expended on water, the monthly water cost is 1 riyal, approximately $0.27 US, and the average residential water tariff is approximately 0.03 US per square meter. The 19 cubic meter tank is 150 SR, and the 30 cubic meter tank is 180 SR. Do your conversions and you'll realize that the true gem in Saudi Arabia isn't the oil, it's the water. Number 7. Salah is a priority. You probably have known this in passing, but never knew it was this serious. We all know that prayer is an integral part of daily life for Muslims, but Saudi Arabians took it to a whole new level. Now, imagine you're in a shopping mall trying to stock up on your essentials, when suddenly, the mall attendants abandon their duties, scurry to a corner, lay out their mats, and start praying. For every citizen in this country, once it is that time of the day, as if a spell is cast upon everyone. Every sector of the country, including transportation, hospitals, schools, and workplaces, would be abruptly brought to a pause, as if an unforeseen force controlled them. This pause is followed by their prayer ritual, which lasts about 20 minutes. Then, as if they were released from the spell, life would return to normalcy like nothing had happened. A piece of advice: to avoid inconvenience, familiarize yourself with the prayer times and plan your visits to public places accordingly, either before or after these significant pauses. Number 6. Efficient supply of camels. If you think you know all there is to know about Saudi Arabia, think again, because we're sure you didn't know that. Beyond the abundant oil that greases their land, Saudi Arabia is also the king of camels. Yes, we're talking about way more camels than anywhere else. You need not be told, because the moment you step foot into this land, you'll be greeted with a street full of camels, as if it were a camel's carnival. But hold on, because the camel extravaganza doesn't stop there. Some of these majestic creatures have undergone training similar to horses, and they even partake in a unique sport, camel racing. Saudi Arabia's laws can be quite strict, so keep this in mind if you embark on this camel adventure. But sometimes, a little adventure and a taste of the unconventional can be just what we need to spice up our lives, right? So, if you're up for a one-of-a-kind experience, witnessing a camel race in Saudi Arabia is an experience you won't want to miss. Number 5. No cinemas. This next discourse is surprisingly unbelievable for a country with such high repute. This is probably where you all will agree that Saudi Arabia sure has a long way to go in civilization, especially in the entertainment industry. Because how can you ban everything, even some people's source of happiness? How more extreme can this get? Did you know there was a time when no cinema could be found in the entire country? A nation whose citizens were deprived of the captivating tales of superheroes, the thrilling adventures of the Avengers, the charm of Captain Jack, and other thrilling cinema marvels. No, I don't think you understand the weight of this. Now, we all know the relaxation we get when we visit the cinema to wind down after a long, grueling week, right? Well, newsflash, if you were in Saudi a few years back, you would have no choice but to get busy with alternatives, go home to your home video rentals, or travel to other countries just to see a movie. It was that serious. Their reason for it? To reduce immorality in the society, but guess what? These restrictions had their downsides, as they hurt their entire economy, which they didn't even realize until the ban was finally lifted in 2018, with the legendary Black Panther making its first appearance in their theaters. And just like a floodgate had opened, foreign investors flocked in, bringing economic growth that benefited the citizens by creating more employment opportunities. Number 4, separate wedding parties. The more we explore the intriguing customs of Saudi Arabia, the more we realize that sometimes we have to accept that different cultures have their unique ways of doing things. Even if they appear strange to outsiders, it's all part of the rich tapestry of human diversity. Now, let's talk about weddings. We're familiar with the joyous celebrations where friends and family gather to honor the happy couple, right? While this is the same in Saudi Arabia, theirs has an unusual twist. Yes, a lavish party is thrown to celebrate the intended couple, but it is done separately this time. Do you remember the rule that disallows men from mingling with women? It is strict at weddings. Here, the women, together with the bride, who will be adorned in expensive attire, will gather in a separate hall where they can engage in lively conversations, partake in activities that they might not feel comfortable doing in a mixed-gender setting, and express themselves freely without any inhibitions or restrictions imposed by the presence of men. Similarly, the men will gather in another room in the same venue, doing their own thing. You may wonder, how does the real wedding happen? Well, at some point, the groom, accompanied by his father and close friends, will visit the ladies' section, where the marriage will be blessed. Afterwards, the groom, with his entourage, will return to their section of the venue, and the party continues. Number 3, the Ampute Soccer. Finally, a breath of fresh air. Let's shift our focus away from the rigidity and to the innovative side of Saudi Arabia. To promote inclusivity for disabled individuals, Saudi Arabia developed a fascinating development where amputee football enthusiasts participate and showcase their skills. This amputee soccer shares similarities with traditional soccer, but with a twist to accommodate players who have experienced limb loss, as players gracefully maneuver the field using crutches to kick the ball. The training sessions for these remarkable athletes are no walk in the park. They undergo rigorous programs focusing on honing their skills and enhancing their physical abilities, preparing them for national and international competitions. This should be very interesting to watch if you ask. Number 2, repercussion for stealing. Let's talk about the not-so-pleasant topic of stealing in Saudi Arabia. Their legal system operates under Islamic law, also known as Sharia, and has some specific rules regarding theft. And trust me, you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of those rules. Under Islamic law, theft is seen as a direct violation of property rights and is labeled as a had crime, a term for offenses that have fixed punishments prescribed by Islamic law. And theft falls right into that category. If someone gets caught stealing secretly, they're in for a rude awakening. We're talking about amputating their right hand. Now, that is little compared to highway robbers, as theirs takes a more serious twist, which could range from execution to crucifixion, and for some unfortunate robbers, the amputation of hands and feet from opposite sides of their body, all depending on the severity of their offense. So, if you have sticky hands, you probably should avoid Saudi Arabia altogether. Number 1. High sand importation. Of all these mind-blowing facts about Saudi Arabia, the one will leave you speechless. Do you know how Saudi is famous for its vast deserts and towering dunes? Well, you'd think they have sand in abundance, right? But brace yourself for this shocking revelation, because you didn't see this coming. Saudi Arabia happens to be one of the highest importers of sand. Imagine a land of deserts and seemingly endless sand reserves, yet they're importing it. You see, the sand used for making concrete, bricks, and glass needs to have the right texture and coarseness to ensure the structural integrity of these magnificent creations. The sand found within the borders of Saudi Arabia simply doesn't cut it. So to get what they want, they have to outsource and meet the demands of their construction projects. And as of 2022, Saudi Arabia had already spent a staggering $3.73 million importing sand. So, the next time you marvel at the awe-inspiring skyscrapers or gaze upon the grandeur of cities like Neom and Qiddiya, remember that millions of dollars worth of imported sand went into creating these architectural wonders. Which of these norms do you feel are out of place? Please don't hold back. We're waiting to hear from you in the comments section. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing exposé.